It's fine. That's the ongoing joke inside of Jen Orr's circle, but in this episode, there's no joke about what Jen has been able to accomplish in just a few short years of becoming an ultra cyclist, a transition from her previous life as a competitive triathlete. Notably, Jen has recently set 8 WUCA world records in her 24-hour record attempt in Borrego Springs, California, grabbing the distance records of 100, 200, 300 and 500 kilometers, as well as the 100, 200 and 300 mile records, and also the 6-hour timed record. Last year, Jen won first place overall in the race across the West, and in 2018, she won first place in the women's category at the World Time Trial Championships, also in Borrego Springs. Her RAAM qualifier was at the 24-hour Worlds back in 2017, and in a short amount of time, Jen has also acquired a lot of experience through racing over 20 double centuries in California and crewing for Seana Hogan's 2018 RAAM. I can't wait to follow her RAAM journey in 2021. I'm your host, Justin Tu. Let's roll. Hey Ultra family, Justin Tu here, your host of the Ultra Cycling Show. Thanks for tuning in for a very special episode today with Jen Orr, a new world record holder, and also a very accomplished ultra cyclist. She has won overall the race across the West, and that was in 2019. She's also crewed for Seana Hogan in the race across America, so she has a lot of experience and knowledge. And out here in California, she has completed over 20 double centuries in the California Triple Crown Series. So Jen, really a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I'd imagine you are mostly recovered from your 24-hour record attempt in Borrego Springs?
Yeah, I think mostly. I've been ramping back up the training a little bit. I did the virtual 24 6-track race over the weekend. I didn't hit it too hard, but it was basically an indoor century, and I'm already a little that kind of took a bit out of me after felt that I was still recovering. And then I'm doing the virtual World Time Trial Championships 12-hour in 2 weeks. So
wow, all right, keeping very, very busy.
Yeah.
And I can imagine you're training quite a bit also. And it's great to hear not only that you're able to do all these events of your own, including the world records, through such a challenging year where perhaps many cyclists have a lot lower mileage totals. I love all these photos that you sent, and we do also have others that I've found on Facebook. You have a great media team and your crew, of course, some of whom are depicted here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to discuss what you've been up to in the ultra cycling world, and I know there's still a nice long road ahead of you, but it will be nice to settle on and just discuss the accomplishments that you have achieved already in, I'd imagine, a short amount of time. You've really become quite the cyclist, and I know a lot of people are following your journey. Now, before we get into that and more, Jen, I'd love to start with a quick sprint round of questions. It's just a short set of questions to get to know you in a fun way. You could answer in a few sentences.
Okay.
First question, of course, is how long have you even been riding bicycles?
I started riding bikes more seriously when I took up triathlon in 2010. I'd been running for a few years and kind of was getting burnt out on that, and took up triathlon and cycling, and kind of realized that was my strongest. I was really strong at cycling, better than swimming or running, and still continue with triathlon for several years. But in the last few years, I focus more on just the cycling.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, glad to have you dedicated in the sport. Obviously, you've been doing a lot since then.
Mm-hmm.
So what year would you say you started ultra cycling, and perhaps what was your first event?
I guess I would consider my first ultra cycling started in 2016 when I did my first double century, which was a Camino Real. And then 2017 was my first I guess true, depending on what you consider ultra cycling. But in 2017, I entered my first 24-hour time trial, and qualified for solo RAAM. And that's kind of been the last 3 years has been where I've really focused on the ultra cycling.
Well, great job, Jen. Amazing. How many bicycles do you own, Jen?
I have 3 bikes that I primarily use. And that which I've got my time trial bike, which is a speed concept that I used in Borrego Springs, and 2 Cannondales, the System 6 and the Synapse. Those are kind of my primary bikes. And I've got a few others that I haven't ridden in over a year that I probably just need to sell to make room and a little cash for to kind of get more bikes that I can actually use. But yeah.
Well, that's a nice collection you have so far. Which do you ride the most?
Well, lately it's been the speed concept most. Just depends on what I'm doing for training, but most of my time the last few months focusing on the time trial or world record was the Cannondale System 6 and the time trial bike. I was kind of actually split between the two of them. Both of them are almost equally fast on the flats, so I was kind of riding plenty of time on both, and it wasn't until the last couple of weeks that I settled on the time trial bike.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, great to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, which bicycle computer do you use, a Garmin or Wahoo?
I have a Garmin 830, I believe.
All right, cool. And what size tire do you use? What's your preferred tire pressure?
I use a 25 millimeter tire, and I usually run, especially lately when I was on the rougher roads in Borrego Springs, around 85 on the front and around 90 or so on the back rear.
Yeah, and roads out there aren't the greatest, and that's something important for folks to know. It's not like you're on some nice slick tarmac and just having a ball out there. And I can imagine even on the time trial bikes, that's made it a little worse with the stiffness.
Yeah, a little bit.
Now, I'd imagine you probably train with power or heart rate at least?
Primarily power, and I kind of keep an eye on the heart rate, make sure depending on if it gets hotter, warmer, I have to, the heart rate starts increasing and I have to dial it back a little bit. But yeah, primarily power.
Have you ever taken a functional threshold power test?
Yep.
Do you know what your numbers are?
It kind of depends on the bike and the power meter, but for my time trial bike, it was we were working with a FTP of 238, cool. And I think I'm actually going to be doing one on my road bike this week, probably on the trainer though. And last time I did one on that bike, it was 275.
Wow, that's really awesome. So definitely a cyclist that takes things seriously. That's great to hear. Now, on a less serious subject, well, perhaps it is a very serious one, in fact. What's your favorite ride snack?
I try to keep the stuff I'd take in on the rides pretty low sugar. I would love to. It's actually hard when I'm out for training rides and have to walk into the mini marts and look at all the fun snacks that everyone else is eating. But I do, as far as eating, and I try to do a lot of not too much solid food, but when I do, I've been using a lot of boiled potatoes lately.
Yummy.
Yeah, occasional like beef jerky.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So do you carry a salt shaker with you, or what do you have on the
Not
potatoes?
usually. I'll kind of salt them before. It was kind of nice. The training that I was doing and during the ride itself, I was training on the course. So I was just doing loops, and I could just stop at my car and have everything, kind of sitting in the car and crew for myself out of the car, and not to carry all of that. So.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. Okay. After a big effort like the record attempt that you had and the records that you did set, what's your favorite post-ride meal? What do you like eating, or you look forward to eating at some point when you can stomach food?
After the big rides, it takes a while before I can take much food in. When I do, again, I still try not to go, straight into let's just eat whatever I want.
Hmm.
But try to stay, like I said, I try to be pretty good with my nutrition. So, depends on the time of day it is, but like yesterday I went for a just kind of a not a long ride, but it did a ride with some friends, and we had tacos afterwards.
Hmm. Oh, all right. Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Very cool. And of course, we're in California, and you're in Southern California, so a lot of great
Yep.
Mexican food there. Now, in terms of terrain, what do you prefer riding? The climbs, the descents, rollers, or the flats?
I like all of it. I love descending. That's kind of my wheelhouse, and as well as the flats. That's why I do well with the flat time trials. Those are kind of my strength. I do enjoy climbing. We have a lot of great climbs here in Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a while since I've done any of them because I've been focusing on the flat stuff. But yeah, I do enjoy going out and climbing some of the mountains out here.
Wow, very versatile rider, and makes sense why you were able to do so well at the race across the West, and of course now with your records. Well done. Now, you said you enjoy going downhill and descending. Do you know what your max speed has ever been?
Somewhere just above 50. I couldn't tell you the exact number, but
Yeah,
yeah, I know
that's
I've
really
hit
fast.
50 maybe a few times. That's if it's which yeah, I don't try to usually I'm not looking down at my speed at that point, but
Yeah, I know. Seriously. Okay, when do you enjoy riding the most? I mean, in SoCal, it's almost like just one
uh,
season year round, but fall, winter, spring, or summertime.
probably like early to late, actually late spring, early summer, kind of
Hmm,
May, June, when the days that I hate the cold, so I like
hmm,
kind of and I can deal with the heat fairly well. I'd much rather be out on a nice sunny day, in the 70s, 80s, where I don't have to bundle up early in the morning, like in these months right now. Um, so yeah, I would say late spring, early summer is when that tends to be.
hmm. Yeah, popular choice. How about time of day that you prefer training?
I usually mostly train in the morning. That seems to be when I feel my strongest. I work full time, so trying to get out after work is I'm usually too tired at the end of the day to want to really
Hmm.
go out and do much. But yeah, I do. I think morning is when I feel my best.
Hmm. Yeah, very true. We have to take that into consideration. And as somebody that does work full time, it just goes to show what is possible.
Hmm.
You don't have to quit your job and retire and become a full-time cyclist to do great things. And
It
you're a
would make
great
it
testament.
easier, but yeah.
Yes, most definitely. Okay, Jen, do you think ultra cycling requires more physical or mental training and fortitude?
I think as the distances get longer, the mental part is much bigger. It becomes a much bigger aspect. Yeah, it
Hmm.
obviously you do have to have a very strong physical base
Hmm.
to be able to do a 24-hour ride or to ride across the country or a third of the way across the country. But yeah, the mental, you definitely have to have a lot of mental fortitude to both put in the training miles and to stick it out when it gets rough on those longer races.
Hmm. Yeah, well said. I like that answer. It really isn't just a linear progression. As you said, as the miles increase, it definitely becomes more difficult mentally. So, very
Hmm.
true. Of course, you have that experience having ridden the race across the West and in 2 days, 20 hours, and some change, which is incredibly fast, but also a long time to be on the
Yeah.
bike and battling those conditions, both weather and also road conditions and others. Now, you've ridden quite a lot of different events and a variety of them, from time trials to these multi-day events to even the single-day double centuries. I'm wondering, what is your favorite event?
Uh, a specific event or just or distance or
Yeah, a specific
any.
event. Has there been one that has really stood out to you? Perhaps it's the race across the West, or perhaps something else.
Yeah, it's tough to say, but I mean, the race I keep going back to is the Borrego Springs 24-hour time trial. That's kind of been a favorite of mine. I've had some very successful results there, and I've had some less than successful results. And it's kind of what I was really hoping to be able to go back to and race this year, and kind of, come back from what was not a great result last year, and hopefully things are back to normal next year so I can go back and do it again.
Well, sheesh, with your world records that you set and all of the great performance this year, I don't know if normal is a good thing. Seems like for you, perhaps when it's not normal, it's even better, breaking all kinds of records. Last question here in the sprint round, Jen. When you think of ultra cycling, who pops into your mind?
I think the first name that came to my mind was Seana Hogan. She's the queen of ultra cycling.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, thanks, Jen. Nice to get to know you in a fun way. I do want to get, of course, to your world records, which you recently set. Now, what were the dates of that 24-hour ride that you did?
I started 9 a.m. on November 7th and finished at 9 a.m. on November 8th. Actually, I guess 9:06 a.m. is when I stopped riding.
Wow. Just had to throw in a few bonus minutes there.
Yeah.
And well done. I love this graphic that you have on Facebook.
Thanks.
So you hold these road records. Let's see, how many are there? 2, 4, 6, 8. 8
Yep.
world records. Wow, amazing. All within a 24-hour time frame. So from the 100-kilometer all the way to 300 miles in terms of distance records, and then the 6-hour record.
Right.
So very impressive. For those who maybe aren't familiar with all these kinds of distances, perhaps they may be familiar with the 1, 2, and 300 miles, and especially the 100 mile, 5 hours, 17 minutes. So that's a fast time, even just for a century on its own, let alone riding for another several hundred miles after that. And of course, for those who are familiar in California with the double centuries, 200 miles, 11 hours, 14 minutes, that's also a very fast time as well. So you weren't riding at a leisurely pace at all, even from the get-go. Tell me a bit about your pacing. I mean, what were you planning to do going into this record attempt? And then how did everything actually end up panning out?
So I guess I was basing my effort on my power. I was definitely not concerned at all about, I don't even think I had speed on my screen to look at as a metric. I knew the speed I needed to maintain to break the record, which for the only number I was focused on was the 24-hour record, which was 439 miles. And I think I needed to average about 18.3 miles per hour for that. In my training, I had been on the course. I had been with, a pretty deep, kind of my race effort was averaging over 20 miles per hour. So I taking into account, hopefully minimal rest breaks, I figured it was not going to be a problem to break the effort. And I was even hoping that it would be, I was even trying to, see if I could hit that 500-mile mark in the 24 hours. But as anyone who followed the record report and the journey knows, the weather did not work in my favor, and I was out in some pretty severe winds of, I think, steady winds of 17, 20 miles per hour, gusts of up to 50 miles per hour. Wow. So we knew going in the last day or two with that weather forecast that it was going to be a challenge. And my main focus was just to not worry so much about the speed, just to keep my effort right where I was at. And I was kind of an autopilot because I'd done so many training rides on that course at a steady effort. So just from the outset, I just kind of settled into my effort, race effort, and stayed there for a good 10 to 12 hours, I think. And then, as I guess would be expected, power kind of started to drop a little bit. And yeah, from that picture, you could see there was some rain as well. And I remember I guess I didn't think about it as much. The rain didn't bother me so much as the wind, but it wasn't raining the entire time. It maybe a few hours, but I was listening to your conversation with Marco after his record, and heard him talking about how the corners had you had to slow down when it was wet, or it slowed him down a little bit. And I thought, like, yeah, it's for most of the night. We got most of the time that it would rain a little bit and then would dry up because the sun was still out during the day. But then we got this huge downpour after dark, and the roads didn't really dry up through the night, so they were wet almost all night. And I'm thinking, yeah, I really did have to take those turns pretty more conservatively than I would have had the roads been dry, and that probably cost me some time, probably not world record another, I guess, 30 miles that I needed type of time, but definitely cost me a little time. I think it was more the wind that slowed me down more than anything.
Yeah, and for all those cyclists watching, of course, they'll be able to relate. The wind can really slow you down a lot, and it's amazing that you had to deal with those conditions. Now, of course, you are familiar with those adverse conditions, having done the race across the West, having battled the heat of Arizona, and perhaps even rain or hailstorms going through there. And of course, the altitude as you get into Colorado. And so I guess this really does help in terms of building you up in terms of physical and mental stamina for something like the Race Across America, where, although some may decide to forego the ride on this day, knowing what the forecast was in the Race Across America, you don't have a choice really. I mean, you can sleep, I suppose, in the RV for a few hours, but at the end of the day, eventually you'll have to get going again. And you did mention the curves, and I found this nice photo, and it seems like you just have an incredible crew that was even out there beforehand sweeping them for you for safety. That's incredible. Tell me a bit about your crew.
I had a great crew. I had close to 20 people out there. 3 of them were officials. My head official, Mark, was, he was committed to making sure that he's like, yeah, it's my responsibility to make sure the conditions are as safe as possible. So he came out there the day before with the 2 guys, Eric and my friend Pat, who showed up out there. And they were sweeping the corners, and even during the event, I don't even think I noticed or realized until after, but the wind was blowing so much debris across the roads that he was even sending people out in the rain and the wind to keep sweeping some of the debris off the roads.
Amazing. And is this some of your crew right here?
That's about maybe half of the crew. Yeah. That was right after, as we finished. Everyone else was kind of scattered around. Some people had kind of gone back to get some sleep, and some people were off getting breakfast ready.
Nice. Wow. It really takes teamwork to make the dream work. And it's amazing. I think not just your ability to get to the start line of this record attempt, but also being able to assemble such a team, I'm sure, of diverse skill sets to be able to help you in everything that is required in a 24-hour ride, which, again, perhaps especially non-cyclists, or at least non-ultra cyclists, they may take for granted and not realize what it does take to pull off something like this. It is more than just biking and sitting on the seat and turning the pedals for a while. And I have another great photo that I saw on Facebook here of your crew hard at work. Very nice operation. You would think there is an actual bicycle event going on out there with more than one person. So very well done. Tell me about how you assembled the team and how you even figured out who to bring out there and how that all worked out.
When I first, I decided as soon as the decision to do the world record started when they canceled the Borrego Springs time trial, and I already kind of had that idea, knowing it would probably be canceled. So as soon as it was, I said, okay, let's start planning this. I've got a month or so to plan this, and I just put out some posts on Facebook social media, hey, let me know if you're interested. And I got this, yeah, I was thinking, okay, if I can get like 6 crew members and, get a couple people to officiate, I'm good. But, I had this overwhelming number of people, responding and wanting to come out and support. And, as we kind of started the planning process, like, okay, it'll be nice to have this many, I have a few people in the follow vehicle, have, plenty of officials and people to, help get food ready for the crew, and people to stand at a stop sign and be at Christmas Circle to kind of, so yeah, it definitely took pressure, put people in shifts so that not everyone's having to go 24 hours straight. So so yeah, I just had a ton of people. I don't think I really turned anybody away, but just anyone that came and was on board and wanted to be a part of it, they were.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible, Jen. It's a good skill to have, all the logistics, because as you already know from doing the Race Across the West and with your aspirations to do the Race Across America, of course, that is a vital part, as Marco likes to say, and others, Christoph Strasser's famous words, that, it takes 33% of both physical, 33% of mental strength and training, but also 33% of the crew. And although the crew can't win the race for you, they could definitely lose it.
Absolutely.
And so it is a whole nother skill that you have to learn to be able to put together the dream team to make things happen. Now, I really love the shirts. Tell me about that. It's an interesting face here, and it says "It's fine."
Yep. So that it kind of started before I was even doing the ultra cycling stuff. Just with some friends, it was kind of an inside joke that, it was just our way of, I guess, deflecting when something was going wrong, and we would just say, oh, that's fine. And, and then as a way of kind of expressing that, like in text and social media, and it's like, well, we got to assign like some emoji to it's fine, so that we, can kind of like a shorthand, I guess. And we decided on the neutral emoji. And then it kind of, the first ultra cycling, the big event I did in 2017, the time trial, we used those shirts, and it just kind of became something I had as kind of my slogan, and that became recognizable. So I just stuck with it.
Yeah, it's really cool. I also see it here in this photo. This is the finish line of the Race Across the West.
Yeah.
I see your crew even holding up paddles of that emoji.
Yep. I have a few signs. And
really have committed to that. But of course, on your face, you very much have a big happy smile. That's so cool. What a great achievement. But getting back to the 24-hour record. So, I mean, you had to battle some adverse conditions. Now, from my understanding with the world record, working with the World Ultra Cycling Association, and of course, the people who will officiate that for you, there is some wiggle room to be able to do it on a different date. Tell me about your thought process behind that. I mean, was it just a logistical issue, and it was going to be, just more work than you would like to change the date, or what exactly was your thought process?
I was glancing at the forecast to see if it really would have made, number one, if it really would have made a difference to start, a day later or a day earlier. But even if it, and I don't think it would have, because I mean, if anything, if I could have started on Friday morning, it may have, I wouldn't have probably had the rain. And it might have been a little calmer during the day. It still got really windy Friday night. I don't think it would have made any difference Sunday. Sunday was, I think, just as bad as Saturday. But the thing, what it came down to really was most of my crew could not get out there until Friday afternoon or evening, or even Saturday morning. So I wouldn't have had the support on if I had chosen to move it up a day. And even if I'd been able to move it back a day, a lot of people needed to be back at work on Monday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the challenges of life.
Yeah.
I mean, even with something like RAW or RAAM, I mean, being able to assemble a crew of even 5 people or 10 people, and for them to commit to a week to 2, that's a big undertaking in itself. So I suppose all good experience, but I think more than anything, it just goes to show the kind of person that you are, and it speaks volumes about the grit that you have to be able to push through with this record temp in probably some of the worst conditions that you could uh,
Yep.
encounter,
Yeah, I
especially with the wind. Yeah.
trained through a lot of conditions. I did not didn't have to train through any of that.
Yeah, man. Well, a lot of kudos to you for that. And of course, you did mention Seana Hogan earlier, and you did crew for her before, but it looks like this photo is probably from the World Time Trial Championships in Borrego.
Yeah.
I see from the medal. And of course, Seana is a participant there many times as well. And so I'm sure even going across America with her and being able to witness everything that she was going through really prepared you as well. And so I could just imagine with your record setting just recently, would you say that in some ways you kind of embraced those adverse conditions and just in your mind thinking like, man, this is really great preparation for other things that I have in my future?
I absolutely did think that during, yeah, there was, I remember probably several moments, but even one specifically, I am registered for RAAM 2021, and hopefully that ends up happening. I was supposed to do it this year, and it got canceled. But yeah, when it was dark, it was just after dark, and it started raining as harder than it had all day, and it's cold and temperature's starting to drop, and I'm just like kind of marveling at, okay, how did I get this kind of luck for of all the days. And then yeah, I just kind of said, you know what, this is it's really tempting to just say, why am I doing this? I already broke some records. I don't see myself breaking the 24-hour record. Why am I still doing this? And I realized it's because I'm training for RAAM. If I stop, I can't stop if I'm in RAAM. Like you said, maybe stop for an hour to let it pass, but at the same time, it's I have to ride through this in RAAM. This is my training.
Geez, definitely a champion's mindset there, and I'm sure you'll do very well. Of course, you've proven yourself in winning first overall in the race across the West, which is a huge achievement in itself. So, of course, this is just adding to that experience, which will help you to be extremely successful in RAAM. We can't wait to cheer you on, and I really do hope that it is still on for next year, and all fingers crossed there. It'll be really fun to watch you race, and I remember watching you just last year in the race across the West, and it was very exciting to see you out there in the front. And of course, you did win first overall. I love this photo here. I mean, many people who have done RAAM or even double centuries in the area, the Borrego double century, Oceanside double century, they'll be familiar with these kinds of roads here in the low desert of Borrego. And this is kind of what you were looking at all day for 24 hours. And nothing very glamorous here. So tell me about what you were thinking about through this whole time. I mean, other than the parts where it was raining and the winds were howling and you were perhaps cursing under your breath, what else keeps you busy in your mind while you're doing something like this?
Yeah, people ask me that a lot. I just, I mean, sometimes my mind wanders, but for the most part, I'm just trying to, I really do just focus on, okay, is my effort where it's supposed to be? Am I riding on my race pace? I'll, sometimes kind of focus on my breathing, just almost meditating at times, kind of, doing body scans and, just focusing on the effort. And I mean, something like RAAM, it's, for days at a time, you do kind of need the distractions, but for the 24 hours, I was really trying to just stay, okay, I need to kind of stay dialed in for 24 hours straight as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I must say, in just chatting with you, Jen, you definitely have a very disciplined approach to everything that you do. Earlier, you were talking about nutrition, and amazing how disciplined you are there. I would say you might be the first of all of our guests who have said such an answer. Even some of the top guys have always mentioned pizza or pasta or something. Now, okay, pasta isn't, I wouldn't say the
Yeah.
the most unhealthy or anything like that, and could be very nutritious and delicious as well. But it's very cool to see how you've embraced this mindset, and of course it goes to show now, and it makes sense why you were so successful at the 24-hour World Time Trial Championships. Of course, first in the female division there a couple of years ago, and then of course first place overall in Raw. And it's very nice to learn about who you are and how your mind ticks. Now, we showed some of the kind of stereotypical desert there. Now, here's Christmas Circle, very popular for those who ride in the area or who have done Raw or RAAM. And probably some of the Oni Green that you'll see for hundreds of miles out there also. Now, I did pull up, and for those who don't know, I mean, it's a very large circle. You can't even see the outer circumference on either side, but I did pull up on a Google map also. So if we look at a map of the US, of course, Southern California, let's see here. Let me search to go there faster. There we go. So for those who are familiar with Raw or RAAM, you start in Oceanside all the way here, Pacific Ocean, and you ride inland to eventually descend what they call the Glass Elevator or Montezuma Valley Road down there. Nice descent. Although halfway down during the midsummer, it feels like you're entering a convection oven.
Yes, it does.
And then, let's see. There's Christmas Circle. You pass through the little town of Borrego Springs, and at the one, I guess that's like the center, really, or no, not really, or
kind of, yeah. I mean,
kinda,
it's toward the west end of town, but it's kind of the town center, if it's not geographically the center. Yeah,
and there's definitely a lot of different stores and restaurants out here to eat, and so kind of just to show folks what it looks like there. And of course, in RAAM, you come through here, and if I remember correctly, you actually come down this first exit, right?
Yep. Yeah, you turn right on Borrego Springs Road towards
there we go.
Towards Brawley. Yep.
Onto that long desert road. Wow. So how does it feel how did it feel to ride out there? I mean, I always find even doing the Borrego double century out there, it feels kind of lonely and desolate out there, and not a whole lot going on. Now you were there, you had a nice big crew, but also, I mean, did it bring any memories back of Raw and any kind of excitement for doing the Race Across America and knowing that you'll be back out there again?
A little bit. I think mainly I just think about the time trial out there, just because I'm doing that loop over and over again. I wasn't doing the same loop as for the time trial, but I've just spent so many, because I'm about an hour and a half or so drive from there. I train out there a lot when I am getting ready for the time trial. So it's, I kind of like the kind of more deserted roads, and it's, even though it's not that, it's not a lot of interesting stuff to see. I kind of, when I'm in the mindset of training for these the time trials and these loops, I kind of just get into I almost embrace the kind of monotony. It's like I know it's around every turn, and I kind of just broke the loop into segments. And so I was just thinking about all the training rides I'd done out there, and I focus on the next landmark. And so I wouldn't say I think too much about Raw and RAAM as I go through there. But it is, but it is a big part of that. Yeah.
So you have the ability to stay focused.
Yeah.
And that is also important to get all the distractions out. Now I'm wondering, what was the loop? So you did go through Christmas Circle. Which direction did you head after that?
So I did a clockwise loop. So started at Christmas Circle and headed north.
Okay.
Out of, so opposite direction as the RAAM route would go. And followed the time trial course route, which goes north, past all the sculptures, right. And then makes a right. It looks like a sharp right turn, and I guess it kind of is, but that was the corner that those guys were brushing off, and then it does that little kind of S turn there at the quick right, quick left at the end of that road. I think it's the same road, Henderson Canyon Valley or whatever it is, and then make that first right turn there at Borrego. I think it's Borrego Canyon. Yep. Head south and back towards town. And then when you get to Palm Canyon, which is kind of the main road heading into town, that's where I turn right to head back. The 18 miles circuit for the time trial would have kept going straight through that stop sign there and kind of done another kind of completed the loop on the south portion, but I stick with the shorter loop.
So how many laps did you end up doing?
41 loops.
Wow. Yeah. So you're definitely familiar with all the scenery out there, probably have it memorized.
Yeah.
And I want to share this photo because, of course, as being part of an actual WUCA record attempt, you do have to have some officials out there tracking certain metrics to be able to provide in the report, so that way WUCA can sanction the records. Tell me a bit about that aspect of the record attempt.
Yeah, so that was my friend, my head official, Mark, took that picture from inside his van, and to my knowledge, I think he just was sitting in the van for almost the entire 24 hours, just recording the splits of every lap, and I think taking information from the official. There has to also be an official in the car with eyes on me the entire time. So I had two people rotating out of the car every 6 hours, and so they were communicating with each other when I think when I hit certain points on the course, and so he had to. I think he had originally planned to use stopwatch, like 24 different stopwatches or something like that. And then he realized there was like an app on the iPad where he could just kind of hit a button every time I went through, and cool. So he was busy. Apparently, for him, it was, he'd spend a few minutes after every time I passed through having to do some calculations and jotting numbers down, and then have a few minutes to kind of be ready for me to come through the next time. So he kept him busy, and but also gave him little breaks here and there.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Amazing how, even for, one would think just 1 full days of a ride, you wouldn't have, that many moving parts, but there are. And I saw a post on Facebook as well that you did have at least one flat tire in this record attempt, right? Tell me about that situation.
Yeah. So that was, I think it was less than 12 hours in, a little less than halfway through. It wasn't too surprising given all the rain and wind brushing stuff across the roads that the flat would have happened. But I was riding, I was maybe a mile or so north of the Christmas Circle when I started to feel my front tire getting a little, some bumpiness, and said, hold on, I think I might have a flat here. And sure enough, it wasn't completely flat. But it was definitely going very low. So the plan had been, I was on my time trial bike, my Cannondale, my Aero road bike was on the back of the vehicle. We just switched out bikes as quickly as we could, and I got on that bike and did finish the loop on that bike. They dropped off the time trial bike when we went through Christmas Circle. I did another loop on the road bike, and then by the time I came back around, they had the time trial bike ready to go again, and finished out. So I spent maybe 45 minutes on the road bike. The rest of it was on the TT bike.
Cool. Wow. Well-oiled machine for sure.
Yeah,
and that is important. I mean, all the off bike time, especially for a time trial like this, is very important. So it sounds like you were able to recover very quickly from that. I'm glad you were able to, but it does remind me of a previous episode not too long ago with Stanko Verstošek. He actually recently set the new 24-hour world record for men, previously held by Christoph Strausser. And you wouldn't believe, but this time trial bike that Stanko was riding was the only bike he had there.
Oh, wow.
And his belief and philosophy was that he had to be fast, and the only way he could be fast is to ride on that bike. And so he didn't even bother bringing another one.
Oh, wow.
But I know next year he plans to attempt, I believe, the 24-hour outdoor track
Okay.
division or category rather of the record. And so perhaps after watching this episode, he may reconsider having a second bike. Yeah, so a lot of details to consider. Now, for the race across America, that's, I guess, coming up quickly. So I suppose this was a good test also. And I guess even the 24-hour virtual that you're going to do soon are a great test of your fitness, both physically and mentally. I'm wondering, how are you feeling about all that? I mean, you were planning to do it this year, so I'd imagine you were already training beforehand?
Yeah. I was training for Race Across America right up until the day it got canceled, which was that was end of March, I believe.
Wow.
And then I shifted focus to getting ready for Borrego Springs, and spent the summer getting ready for that. So I was, it would have been a huge blow to have had that race canceled and not had something to kind of go as a backup plan to do something with all that training I'd been doing.
Man, that's amazing. Can't believe it. How long was your training plan leading up to that day where you realize, okay, RAM isn't on anymore?
I I mean, I guess I've been training, building up to it since I guess uh since probably I won the time trial in 2018. There had been some amount, I maybe recovered from that a little bit, but
Hmm.
after recovering from that, I went into training for RAAM, and everything from the, then recovered from that. It's just been a long couple year build, really. Not necessarily constantly, linearly doing more and more miles, but yeah, I've been training pretty consistently for all that time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great to hear. And again, especially through the pandemic, being able to do all that
Hmm.
training and pull off something like some world records, that's pretty impressive as well. Shows the level of commitment that you do have for
Hmm.
ultra cycling. Now, when you were training for the Race Across America, previously and even now as you continue to train, are you training with a coach?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Very cool. And in the latter days of your training, what was the mileage, the volume of miles that you were riding in your training to give folks an understanding of how much training you were doing?
I've probably I've ridden over 16,000 miles this year in 2020.
Wow.
So I think I'm averaging over the course of the year around 300 miles a week. When I was building up towards the world record attempt, I think the last 4 weeks of training block, I had over 400 miles a week.
Hmm.
A lot of very flat and fast miles, 400 miles, but yeah, I was going 20-25 hours a week that I was spending on the bike.
Amazing. Yeah, pretty incredible. Glad you were able to use that fitness for something
Yeah.
incredible. Of course, now you do have some world records to your name and a whole set of them.
Hmm.
And so as you continue to train, I suppose you'll just have to rinse and repeat again and hope that everything works out for June 2021. What else is on your bucket list outside of doing the race across America?
I'm actually, I think just pretty quick here, trying to get the wheels in motion to go out, back out, probably to do the same loop in most likely February to have a go at the distance records for 500 miles and 1,000 kilometers,
Hmm.
um, and possibly hit the 24-hour record in the process. And there is no current record in the books for the 500 mile or the 1,000 K, so it would just be going the distance. Although I've been told that there might be at least one other person out there with their eye on those records, so
Hmm.
I definitely want to be putting the bar as high as possible.
Amazing. So no slowing down for Jen Orr. That's just amazing. Tell me about what motivates you. I mean, how do you stay so, enthusiastic, passionate, and excited and, driven to go from one thing to the next. I mean, it's only been several years since you've been an
Uh-huh.
ultra cyclist, and in such a short amount of time, you've done some pretty incredible things. I mean, I think just even one of those achievements in a cyclist career would be enough, but
Yeah.
you've done a whole handful of them already. What
Yeah.
motivates you?
I think the at the top of my list of things that I'm always thinking about is for the last I guess almost 3 years my big goal has been to finish solo RAAM.
Hmm.
So I'm always that's kind of always on the forefront of of my motivation. And then what I think about a lot in the training, and even when I was out there in the conditions for the record, I think about all the people that have supported me, that have contacted me to tell me that I inspire them, and how many people are looking at me, and how I just I'm doing this for all those people that have been supporting me all this time, or that just think what I'm doing is helping inspire them.
Hmm. That's pretty amazing. Using your ultra cycling and quite frankly your life as a platform for inspiring others to reach perhaps for their own dreams and goals. And talking about that, I see at least two photos here, this one and this one here. Tell me
Mhm.
about who this gentleman is.
That is that's Paul Cornish. He was one of my mentors in ultra
Hmm.
cycling. He held the transcontinental world record for a few years that he set in
Wow.
1973 before it was broken by John Marino.
Hmm.
And I got to know him about 7 years ago when I was training for my first Ironman. Met him through a good friend of mine. And in the last few years, um, we spent a lot of time riding together. It was before I got into ultra cycling that we were doing a lot of riding together. He unfortunately was killed while riding his bike in 2017, and it was just in the month or so after he passed away that I decided to sign up for the 24-hour time trial, and kind of did that, and had done most of my rides in his memory, and I always think about him. I think about him on virtually every ride I do, and definitely,
Hmm.
I have a bracelet with his name on it, and a wristband, and his quote, "Bicycles have no walls," was on the back of my cruise t-shirts and on my
Oh,
jersey.
wow. That's so cool.
So
That's really awesome. Yeah, very special memories and a very special person. Thanks for sharing those stories.
yeah.
What would you say is one or two things that you've learned most from your time in knowing him and having him there as a mentor for you?
um I just think of all the, I think of his big, yeah, he claimed to not be a people person, but he
Mm,
loved talking to, he would chat up, anyone on a ride. It was more when he was off the bike that he was a little more reclusive. But
mm.
yeah, sometimes I just imagine that, his big smile, kind of, you know, how excited he'd be,
Mm,
thinking about what I was doing right now. And he
mm,
used to have these Facebook posts that he would go on and on about, something he saw or something he heard, and how much he'd be rambling on about, how proud he was of me. And so I think about him a lot.
yeah, that's awesome that you're able to have people like that in your mind through all these grueling attempts
Hmm.
and rides. And tell me about this person.
And that's my coach, Rachel Goyette.
Ah, very cool.
She's been on my crew for a few races, and
Mm,
she's been coaching me for 3 years now. So
mhm,
since after my first ultra I wasn't coached until early 2018. I was
mm,
training for an Ironman at the time,
mhm.
before I kind of shifted focus over to ultra cycling. I'd already done the 2017 time trial and qualified for solo RAAM, and she's, had primarily been coaching triathletes and runners, and but she's had, definitely some cycling experience herself, and she puts a lot of work into her coaching business, and does a lot of research and stays current. And she was, I knew that if I asked her to work on my ultra cycling, that she would really put some effort into figuring out how to train an ultra cyclist, and she did, obviously, and we've had some great results together.
Oh yeah, and of course, big smiles in that photo, and I'm sure she's very proud of all that you two have accomplished together, which is so cool when you can celebrate these victories. I think as part of it, ultra cycling with your crew, with your coaches, with friends and family, there's so many people that support us, and it really makes it special because we know we're not just riding for ourselves. And I think that's a big thing. And of course, we've seen here today in all the photos and your stories that there's a lot of folks that support you and believe in you. And so I'm sure that'll keep you fueled and going in those dark moments of the race across America.
Yeah.
And, we recently had an interview with Dex Took. Many know him.
Yeah.
An ultra cycling veteran and enthusiast of the sport. And he was talking about that in our episode, about those dark moments. And, there's always 1,000 reasons to not keep going, and you just have to find that one. But from what I could tell, it looks like you have several dozen reasons at least to keep going, and friendly faces to keep you strong. Now, back to training, Jen. Tell me what a week looks like for you, and perhaps what is a workout that you dread to do, and perhaps another one that you like doing?
So typically I'd probably have, usually Monday is either a rest day or an easy day, since my weekends are usually long rides. On Tuesday, probably typically just kind of a easier, it's either a pretty easy ride or just a steady, kind of lower end effort, to kind of ease back into things. And then by Wednesday or Thursday, maybe doing some tempo, harder efforts or intervals. Then usually another easy day Friday to kind of get ready for the weekend. And then, some longer efforts, sometimes with some intervals thrown in there on Saturday. And I think Sundays, when I am it's usually just kind of a steady effort, but still kind of a long ride. That would be a typical week, especially the last month or two leading into Borrego. I enjoy the long rides, and just kind of getting into that steady effort, and trying to maintain it, and get to the end of it's usually starting out kind of pace myself for the first couple hours, and then by the last hour I'm really pushing it to maintain that. But I enjoy kind of the long adventure days of it. Lately it's just been doing loops somewhere, but but yeah, those long rides are fun. And then I guess one of my least favorite things to do is the FTP test. I just trying to just go into that max effort and steady effort for it's lately. I think we've been doing a full hour of max effort. So
all right, nice to hear. So actually doing that full 60 minutes, that's tough.
That
really is. But I suppose also for your ambitions, and quite frankly for the mental fortitude that you do have, I suppose that's the perfect tool to keep sharpening you.
Yep.
And so it is nice to hear again just about your discipline when it comes to nutrition, but also with your training. You take it very seriously. Of course, you do also have a coach. And so I'm sure you'll be very successful with RAAM when it comes. Now, with RAAM, what are your goals? I mean, it'll be your first RAAM. So is your plan just to finish, or do you actually have a certain goal in mind in terms of time?
I think for now, my goal is just to finish. I think most people, my coach and people who've been following me that know RAAM, believe that I can finish well under the cutoff. say, I think Martin Grubel, and this was a couple of years ago, I think he predicted, maybe 10 days. That would be great. But if I can just get that finish, I'm happy.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll be cheering you on. Now, I'd love to know from the race across the West, what were some of the most difficult times for you and perhaps the biggest lessons that you've learned that will carry over to the race across America that'll help you be successful there?
I think the lowest point for me was climbing through the Coconino National Forest up towards Flagstaff. It was the middle of the second night. I had tried to take a sleep break earlier in the day, just at the top of Yarnell Grade, and didn't, I was down for, I think, an hour or so, but I don't know that I really slept. And they'd already had to pull me off the road at the top of Mingus Mountain just before they basically, I was kind of wavering enough that they felt I needed to take a break before making that long descent in the dark towards Jerome into Camp Verde. And I struggle up that climb. And, I remember just my crew and behind me having to, I kept stopping. I just would, I was looking down at the numbers and the mileage, and it just, wasn't seeing the numbers tick off. And I'd look up the road. It's dark, and and what I can see in my lights, it's just all uphill. There's no let up. And I was tired. And then once I did get to the top, and then I actually had to shuttle across some wildfires to Lake Mary Road. I was looking forward, okay, I get to sit in the car for 10 miles and get a little break without losing time. But the problem was, once I got back on the bike, it was cold and dark, and I was still, it was almost like rest just did me in, because once you probably know, it's once you stop, you don't want to get going again. So I ended up taking another cat nap and didn't even want to get back on the bike once they did put me on the bike. And, that actually was one of those moments. My friend, I remember I think it was Pat who, it may have been, I remember it was Pat and Donna that were with me. And one of them, said to me, like, what would Paul tell you to do right now? And, like you said with Dex, like, sometimes it's that one thing that one reason, all the reasons you have to quit, but find that one reason that you need to keep going. And then another thing he said was just all the work that thinking about all the work that I did to get there. I couldn't just let that all go because I was tired. So, so that was kind of the dark place. And then I kind of gradually started to recover from there. I think what I learned, from that experience that I need to take with me is a little bit more, I think I've learned to work better with my crew since then. In the last year, especially with this last crew for the world record attempt, and also the importance of the communication device, which broke down in raw within the first day. And that was probably another difficulty, is that they weren't, when I was struggling, they didn't really have a way of communicating with, I was kind of disconnected from the follow vehicle, which makes it more difficult. But, having a more dependable communication system, which we did have during the world record attempt, I think that'll be crucial as we get into the longer distances with RAAM.
Yeah, very vital with any team effort, all that communication. Now, I'm curious, what system were you using for the world time, or rather the record?
I was using the Vertex Ultra, which is now the official communication system for RAAM.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Very, very dark moments, as you explained there. And that story, I'm sure many of those, both crew members and racers in RAW and RAAM, can relate. And those are some difficult times, but you made it through, of course. And not only did you finish, but you got first overall. So I'm so glad you were able to break through that. I saw some nice photos here. I'd imagine they are from the raw that you did a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was actually when I was pre-writing the course last a few months before the race.
Ah,
And I put it in there. There actually weren't a ton of pictures taken during the race
mm,
itself, just because the crew got so busy and overwhelmed. But yeah, this was taken back in March 2019, and I put it in there because it was one of my favorite moments, spots on the course when you kind of drop into Monument Valley. I see that you have your background in the same
mhm.
this is
Oh
Monument
yeah,
Valley as well. It's just one of the
iconic.
coolest, yeah, it's just one of the iconic, coolest parts of the
Yeah.
course.
Oh, most definitely. And yeah, in some ways, some of the hottest that you can get
Yeah.
to. And well, do you remember if you passed through when you did raw during the daytime or the evening?
It was just before sunset. I was really actually pretty
Ah,
excited that we got to go through there while it was just still light out. It got dark very
mm,
shortly after we got through Monument Valley.
yeah. Yeah, beautiful area. I mean, it looks better in a photo when you're actually out there. Geez, it's
Uh-huh.
you'd rather not be there. But the nice thing about it is it's at the tail end of, well, in this case,
Close to it, yeah.
Utah, but at the tail end of the desert stretch
Yeah.
and getting closer to the finish line of the race across the West. Now, it's very interesting that you said you actually pre-rode the course. Did you ride the entire course before?
I rode the entire course
Wow,
in about 6.5 days. Yeah. So it was more of a
nice.
tour, where
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, just
But I
rode.
think that that is critical also,
Yeah.
for a lot of these multi-day events to, especially if it's your first time doing one or something like raw or RAM, because you'd be surprised at the conditions that are out there. And if you haven't done a lot of multi-day events or journeyed all around the country or the world, it'd be tough to realize how brutal they can be. So, what were your thoughts as you were riding it at more an easier pace than your race pace? I mean, what were your first thoughts as you were riding the entire course?
Um, you mean the pre-ride?
Right.
Yeah. I really was trying to ride it at kind of my race, what we thought would be my race effort,
Mm,
rather than kind of, the goal was not is to really treat it as kind of a recon. And
mm.
I had a crew of a couple people that were helping me. And so I
Okay.
actually did it. My cumulative riding time was actually quicker than my ride time in the actual race, because I really
Mm,
was trying to kind of keep my effort pretty dialed in. And yeah, I was taking mental notes. I was
awesome.
taking actual notes,
Mm,
just so I would, it really did help to know that course beforehand.
mm. Now, which part was the most surprising for you, or which one were you most anxious about, if that's even the right word, for the race?
Um, I think trying to get through the heat of the desert,
Mm,
through like Arizona. I wasn't too concerned about, I knew the first, being from Southern California,
mm,
I rode the first, Oceanside to Borrego Springs, the first 50 miles many times
mm.
in the months leading up to the race.
Right, right.
So I had that down. And then, once you get to Borrego Springs, it's usually nighttime or shortly after you go through Borrego Springs. So
Right.
riding through the desert at night, it's still warm, but it's not, the heat of the day. The sun's not bearing down on you. So
Mm,
um, yeah, I think I was mostly concerned about getting through that second day in Arizona, getting up the climb to Yarnell and into Prescott
mm.
and that portion.
Yeah, something that a lot of us worry about as we're training and also racing through there, one of the most difficult places to go through. Now, I'd love to go back to some of the photos that you sent
Hmm.
and just kind of hear from you a bit about each one. So, see one here. A lot of people.
Yeah. That's my very first, that's a 24-hour time trial in Borrego Springs in
Nice.
2017. So me heading out
Cool.
to the start to kind of start my ultra cycling experience. I
Wow.
had no idea what was about to happen.
Jeez, I know. Guess at this point I mean, at this point, was RAM on your radar?
No, no. I
Okay.
knew that it was a qualifying event for RAAM,
Hmm.
And I was kind of shooting just to be able to say that I had qualified for RAAM, but I really
Yeah.
didn't have any aspirations to do RAAM at that point.
Interesting. And I see here on your right calf, is that the Iron Man tattoo right there?
That is a temporary tattoo. I do not
Oh,
have
okay.
any tattoos. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very cool though. All right, here it looks like when you got first place in the
Yep.
female division.
Yeah. So that was my first win at Borrego. The first only time I won at Borrego Springs, a 24-hour time trial with
Amazing.
Megan Hakkinen was in second place. It was a very close race where she had the same mileage but was only like 3.5 minutes behind me. And then
Wow.
Shauna was in third. And really, this is my first big time really winning anything like that. So kind of felt a little awkward standing up there with all this attention on me.
Wow, but that is so special. And it's so cool that you're able to be there on the podium with, as you said, the queen
Yeah.
of ultra cycling, Shauna. And of course, I'm sure you're very good friends with her and you've crewed
Yeah.
for her. And so that's such a special memory to have together.
Absolutely.
I'm sure she is super excited for you
Yep.
in your leading up to the race across America. Now, what's this photo from? I see some more nighttime riding
Yeah.
here.
That was from That was from the world record ride.
Oh,
One of my crew members, right there, or one of the
nice.
officials, I think, took that photo. It just looked like a really cool picture, so I threw it in
Yeah.
there.
No, definitely. It is cool. And we look at some of the other photos like this one, and it looks like a pretty happy ride and pretty enjoyable, although folks may not realize it may be well over 100 degrees here, even in this photo. But a lot of the times we don't see a lot of these ones where sun is setting. You realize, wow, the kind of the fanfare is kind of over. For the race across America, when you first start at the starting line, it's a lot of excitement. But really, once the sun starts setting that first night, then you realize really what you're getting into, and it's just that lone journey with you and your crew, 3,000 miles across. But this is what you have to deal with half the time in the dark.
Yep.
This is an awesome photo. Was this also from the record?
Yep, that was from the record. A friend of mine.
Looking pretty happy here. So this is either the very beginning or the very end.
It was towards the beginning. Yeah, the first
Okay.
few hours.
No, that's cool. But looking slick on that bike. Very nice.
That was from the 2017 time trial. Yeah.
Very cool. Serious face.
That was the start line of Race Across the West. I see my coach Rachel and a couple crew members in there. But what was cool about RAAM and RAAM is, like I said, I'm from Southern California. I live about 40 miles from the Oceanside Pier. So these are all cyclists from the valley here in Murrieta, Temecula that came out to, kind of see me off at the start of RAAM.
Amazing.
I think there were more than that. And a lot of them escorted me down the San Luis Rey bike trail.
Oh, cool.
Until I jumped off of that. So
that is so exciting.
That's
couple photos from the night.
Yeah, that's the crew. That was when we switched after the flat. So we were, had everyone out, all hands out on deck, trying to switch out lights and bottles. And I think I'm chugging some coffee right there. Making sure we didn't waste any time switching bikes out.
Oh yeah, definitely looks like a NASCAR pit stop.
Yeah,
sure here. Very nice.
That is Tom and Elizabeth Guevara.
Ah, yes.
Who I just listened to your show with them the other day, so that's why I kind of included them. They had driven out to us. I really didn't know them, and it was actually cool being able to listen to your show with them to get to know kind of their story. But they had driven out to Borrego just to kind of cheer me on, and I think Tom was in the Gumby costume the entire time. I don't think I ever saw him. I didn't even know what he looked like under the costume, but he was out there trying to motivate me, doing push-ups and
wow, that's so cool.
It's
amazing
cool.
The support you're able to get. Yeah, they live around in the more I guess Central California, Fresno area, and geez, so that was a long ways for them to go, but so cool that they were able to make it out and support you there.
Yeah.
Definitely a great couple, and also familiar with Christmas Circle and Borrego and all
Yeah.
the time trials that they've done there as well. Of course, we saw this photo here of
Yeah.
you and Seana, and
Yeah. That was 2018, the time
nice.
trial the year I won.
Wow, very cool. Looking very fast. I
Yeah.
imagine you have your position dialed in to a
Yes.
T.
Yep. That's me crewing for Shauna in 2018. I think
Hmm.
that's going up Palomar.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah. So at the beginning of the race.
Mm-hmm. That's at the end of the world record ride. So my friend Mark, he was the head official.
Hmm.
He brought that flag. He was in the he's a
Hmm.
veteran, and was a very special flag for him that he
Hmm.
carried during his military career, and was
Wow.
excited to kind of drape that on me at the finish, and did not
Yeah.
know about that until it happened. So and
Incredible.
happened to have that rainbow come out just at the finish to kind of provide a
Yeah,
nice
I
little
was
backdrop.
I was going to say this is just an amazing photo, definitely one
Yeah.
deserving of being framed on the wall. And
Hmm.
wow, super iconic, and
Yeah.
couldn't have ended in a better fashion. And of course, we saw some of your awesome crew.
Hmm.
And again, here at the Race Across the West.
Yeah.
Tell me about this photo.
So that's at the very end of the 2018 time trial, and it just kind of showing uh, that was about the worst I've ever felt getting off a bike. So
Wow.
yeah, I needed a lot of help, and
Huh.
just because this is I kind of included it both to show just that how exhausted I was, and then also my really good friend Tim, who's next to me there, he was my kind of my crew chief at that event. He lives in Texas now, and it's harder for him to get away to crew for me, but he's uh, he was definitely one of my big supporters, and it was great having him. I really wish he could have been there for the world record. I know he would have loved to be there, but just was couldn't get away from work and to be
Yeah.
out there.
But a lot of great memories, special memories with all the folks who love and
Yeah.
support you. And so, Jen, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And as we close out here, I did want to show folks also on the World Ultra Cycling Association website, ultracycling.com, the records that you set are officially in the database, and folks can check that out. So, very cool. And again, a very big congratulations and well deserved. It's been an honor to chat with you and learn about, how your mind ticks. And now it's making all kinds of sense of how you have been able to do all of these records, and of course the Race Across the West, the time trials, and the upcoming Race Across America. So very, very well deserved and exciting to see and follow your journey further. And here's a great photo, of
Yeah.
course, with the welcome sign to Borrego Springs. And you'll be out there again very shortly, and even with your other record attempts that you said you have coming up for the 500 mile and 1,000 kilometer, that'll be very fun to follow along as well.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up here, Jen, I just want to know a couple things from you. And first thing is, well, I'd love to know, I mean, you've been an ultra cyclist for a few years now, so perhaps it's also still fresh for you. But what do you think most people don't realize about ultra cycling?
Um, I don't think they realize. I mean, I don't think they realize that you kind of mentioned before how important the crew is, and how much that can make or break
Hmm.
an event or a race. And that it's more than just, okay, you have to do the training, which is obviously very important, but just all the planning, logistics, funding that goes on behind the scenes that you don't see. Um, if you're not actually in it in the sport yourself.
So very true. Now, how about tips for folks wanting to get started with ultra cycling, whether they're a cyclist already or not even a cyclist at
Yeah.
all?
Well, if you're not a cyclist, just make sure you get a bike, any bike, and start riding. Find some. Big thing would be find some people who are doing the things you want to do. and get tips and advice from them. That's kind of the best way to learn. And if you're a cyclist looking to get into longer distances and ultra cycling, the California Triple Crown double centuries are a great place to start, and also to meet people doing ultra cycling. And then, starting out with some of those smaller, events like the 24-hour, even the 12-hour time trial or a 6-hour time trial, and see how you do there, and kind of build from there. But there's events, hopefully there will be events soon, everywhere that you can hopefully enter and, kind of start dabbling in it.
Definitely. All right, Jen, last couple questions here. Sprint to the finish line. Just some fun questions to end with. I'm wondering, how would you rate yourself in terms of bicycle maintenance on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being exceptional?
Maybe a 3 or 4. I can change a flat, lube a chain,
Nice.
do some real basic stuff, but most of just about everything maintenance wise, just I take the bike to the shop.
Yeah, well, I can imagine for doing all that you do and all the miles you ride, it is important to
Yeah.
do that. Also for reasons other than just knowing how to do all that, because you're very busy, you work full time, you're training a lot. So
Yeah,
it is important to have that crew surrounding you, even in the training mode.
absolutely.
Now, do you have another dream bicycle, or do you already own them?
I really do love that System 6, and I've that speed concept I've had for a long time. It's been with me through all my Ironmans. I actually am getting, possibly before the next record, a new TT bike, and
Wow.
hopefully that becomes my my next dream bike. So we'll see.
Cool. All right. Well, stay tuned for that. All right. Last
Yeah.
question, Jen. Who would you want to nominate for an episode on this show? Is there a story that has inspired you, or one that you just like to know more about yourself?
Yeah. I would actually love to hear from some of like the early pioneers in ultra cycling and RAAM. Whether it's John Marino founding the original Great American Bicycle Race, and which became RAAM. Some of the original finishers. I'd love to hear from some of them.
Yeah, no, great request, and second nomination for that. So we'll definitely make that happen and tell that bit of history. But thanks for taking the time to share
Sure.
some of your story. I know there's a lot still ahead, and will be exciting to follow your journey. But congratulations on your well-deserved records. I know there's a lot coming up still, and we'll be sending the tailwinds your way, hopefully for the next ones.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you again very soon.
All right, you too.
All right. And so everyone watching at home, definitely follow Jen's journey. I'm sure there's a lot of success up the road for her, and I can't wait to see where the road leads her next. Until next episode, everyone, keep spinning ultra.